This right here is the NUU B30 Pro 5G. It's a budget-friendly pro Android smartphone that supports a decent amount of features that you typically won't find in a smartphone that costs just under $300. It's a 6.7-inch AMOLED display with 120Hz refresh rate. It supports Wi-Fi 6 and 5G technology, 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. A 108 megapixel main camera, which is actually a part of a triple camera setup that's well packaged in this beautiful and stylish looking body. So what's the catch? Well, I've actually spent some time with the B30 Pro and I have some thoughts, so bear with me. We're going to talk about them. So typically here on the channel, I review more popular premium smartphones from the likes of Samsung, Google, Apple, because let's face it, these are big brands for a reason. People like them. But I've always been curious about what a budget smartphone would look like from, other brands, because I get frequent questions from friends, from family members, wanting to know what's a good and cheap smartphone that they could just, go out and buy. And that brought me to the NUU B30 Pro. So my initial first impressions are that this is a pretty stylish and good looking smartphone, to say the least. I mean, it definitely does take a lot of its design cues from more popular brands that we've definitely seen before. A slightly curved screen, Gorilla Glass on the front and back, minimal bezels around the display, and of course a small cutout for the selfie camera up front, with the rear cameras having a very similar layout to that of the Pro iPhones. But hey, I'm definitely not complaining about that at all, because NUU won't be the first to have done that, and I'm certain they won't be the last. Either way, this phone definitely has a pretty relatively modern look, and it also feels like it definitely could easily cost twice its price. It truly took me by surprise, which is in this case a really good thing. Now, don't be fooled, this actually is still a polycarbonate plastic frame, but the glass on the back and the front definitely gives it that upmarket feel in my hand, and I'm sure you're definitely gonna hardly notice that it's actually a plastic. Now, looking around the rest of the phone, there's the volume and power buttons on the right. Both feel a bit sharp and thin, but it still works well. The bottom houses a SIM card tray, a USB-C port, and a speaker grill. Now, unfortunately, there are no SD card slots nor a headphone jack here, which I was really hoping we would have got. And the phone doesn't have an IP rating either, which is in this case isn't necessarily surprising for a budget smartphone. But what we do get is an under-display fingerprint sensor, which is pretty easy to reach in my opinion. But I did find that it does require a forceful press for it to work reliably. As I mentioned before, it's a 6.7-inch AMOLED display, which has a resolution of 2400 by 1080, refresh rate of either 60 Hz or 120 Hz. Yes, it actually does select one automatically, depending, of course, on the app that you're using. And it also has a peak brightness of up to 550 nits. Definitely not the brightest display by any means, which means you're definitely gonna have some amount of difficulty seeing the screen outdoors, especially if it's really bright and sunny outside. But overall, I mean, in terms of its design and build, the B30 Pro might not be the most premium, but it still feels good and sturdy enough. And if I was to, just judge it based on only the looks, then this is easily competing with top phones twice its price. But there's actually more to the B30 Pro than its pretty looks. So let's talk about what it's actually like using this phone on a daily. And I'm gonna start with its performance. Alright, so the B30 Pro comes equipped with a pretty healthy 12 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of built-in storage, and the MediaTek Dimensity 7050 processor to power it, which is a mid-range chip that was released, I believe, in early 2023. And I find that for light tasks like writing emails, browsing the web, scrolling through social media, and probably watching videos, the B30 Pro actually feels relatively quick. Apps launch pretty fast and the phone does multitasking surprisingly well. I definitely rarely felt the need to close apps to try and boost or improve its performance. There's, however, a RAM booster feature on the B30 Pro that kind of borrows up to 6 gigabytes extra from that 256 gigabytes of internal storage. That does help with the performance should in case you need it. So for real world gaming on this device, I find that games will definitely play smoothly at low settings while enabling medium settings at 60 FPS. I find that it did kind of give similar performance with occasional slowdowns. But it's when I tried the high settings, that's when I eventually ran into some initial stuttering, even though I find that it did eventually run smoothly without issues, which isn't a bad performance at all for a mid-range smartphone. So essentially, for lighter, less resource intensive games like maybe Mario Kart will work just fine and will cause the device to heat up to an uncomfortable level. However, generally speaking though, for the more everyday tasks or routines that you would typically do with a phone, the B30 Pro works and works really well. Phone call quality sounds crisp and clear enough. The haptics are pretty solid. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi 6 connections have been pretty stable, and of course the speaker is clear and adequate for music playback, even though I think it does sound a little thin in some instances and definitely could use a bit more deep bass frequency for a more full range of sound. Okay, so what about on the software side of things? Now, this is where things continue to get even more interesting because honestly, it's really not that bad. You're pretty much getting stock Android, which I think is one of the best features of this device. And while you will find a few third-party apps pre-installed, they can be uninstalled if needed. The user interface isn't too different either from Google's Android UI with very few changes, but it still somehow feels a little basic. So straight out the box, the B30 Pro will run Android 13. But just before the recording of this video, I actually got the update to Android 14. So definitely you can expect to have Android 14 eventually when you get this device. Now, according to NUU, there will be further support for the B30 Pro with at least 2 years of OS and security updates, which is honestly not the greatest that I've seen, with of course the likes of Samsung giving their budget devices up to 4 years of OS updates. But I'm not gonna knock it. I still commend NUU for actually having a commitment to these smartphones. All right, now here is where the B30 Pro actually remind you that it's a budget device. The cameras. And I mean, this is actually to be expected if I'm being honest, as affordable phones rarely produce high quality shots. So for me, the results were more of a hit or miss type of situation. And just in case you want to know, it's actually a triple camera setup on the back with a 108 megapixel main lens, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel macro lens. I know it sounds promising, right? Well, there's actually more to getting good looking images from smartphones than just having good numbers. And this is where the B30 Pro falls short. Here are some of the images that I shot with the B30 Pro, and as you can see, the results are just okay. They're usable and it's fine for viewing on small screens and for probably sharing on social media. So in this case, I'll actually leave you to be the judge of this one. Let me know what you think of the images that you're seeing coming from the B30 Pro down in the comments. Now, on the video side of things, the B30 Pro will record 4K videos at up to 30 frames per second, and then the rest remains pretty much the same, more or less. Pretty underwhelming results to say the least, but I guess it's still usable in some cases. Nothing really to get excited about. All right, what about the battery? Let's talk about the battery on the B30 Pro. Now, it comes with a respectable 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is considered by today's standard as pretty sweet for a $300 phone, and it performs okay, or I mean, average at best. Now, during my time with it, on my more typical days, which involves scrolling through social media, watching a few YouTube videos, maybe a 30-minute gaming session, checking and responding to emails, and of course the occasional calls, I guess I'd say I got just over 5 hours of screen on time. And at the end of my day, I'm left with maybe 10 to 15% of battery remaining, which isn't bad to be honest, but it's also not great either. Still, if you're not a power user, then this will be more than fine, I guess, for you. Now, on the charging side of things, the B30 Pro supports 30-watt fast charging, and you do also get that 30-watt fast charger in the box, which is, of course, a nice touch. And I find that based on my experience, charging the device from 0 to 100% took me maybe an hour and 15 to 20 minutes. While if you just want a quick top up, then from 0 to 50 in just about 30 minutes. So again, like I said, not bad for a $300 phone, but also not great, which is pretty much a theme of this review video. All right, so with all that said, what do I actually think of the NUU B30 Pro? Who would I recommend this for? Or is it even worth spending your hard-earned money on it at all? Well, if you're looking at what we're actually getting for $300 and also look at what the competition is offering in this price bracket, then it's probably not looking like a bad deal. There are, of course, pros and cons to consider, especially if you look at what something like the OnePlus Nord lineup or even what Samsung is offering with their budget A series phones. But I still think the B30 Pro definitely competes and hold its own for a budget device, and it has definitely impressed me more than I had expected. It's modern and stylish design. It's decent battery, a clean stock Android experience, pretty good gaming performance. It's included with a 30-watt fast charger in the box. I mean, yeah, it's a good package overall, and of course a reasonable priced one as well. But it's also essential to understand that you're not getting features like wireless charging, water or dust resistance, a multi-year software commitment. And if you're also fine with less than okay camera, then ultimately, I guess the decision is going to be up to you of whether or not you should pick this up. But yeah, it's a cool device. I like it for what it's offering. Either way, that's pretty much it for this one. Thanks so much for actually stopping by and checking out this review video of the NUU B30 Pro. If you found it useful, please ensure to leave a like on the video and also share it with someone who you think would or will find this review helpful. Of course, please hit that subscribe button down below and join this awesome community. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I guess I'll see you guys again in my next upload.